the one you follow was fathered by Apollo, but mine was fathered by Zeus. That kind of
My
thing.
dad can beat up your dad.
My dad, oh boy, can my dad be.
Hello, lovely people. Today I bring you another wonderful interview with my top lad, Dr. Bart Ehrman. I'm so glad to have had Bart on here a few times lately. He is such a lovely person and a fantastic scholar, because it is the festive season wherein many people are celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ. Today I'm asking Dr. Ehrman some questions around his upcoming seminar on other virgin births in Antiquity. Enjoy the interview. Let's kick off another conversation. Thank you so much for joining me, Bart. We are going to talk about virgin births in Antiquity. Obviously, it is, the reason for the season, celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ. Many people right now, Jesus and what people say of his, predecessors in Antiquity, was born of a virgin. Can you tell me what does it actually mean textually, the phrase "born of a virgin"? Is there a chance that we're misinterpreting what that means today?
Well, it depends what text you read. But if you're reading it in the New Testament, there are two books of the New Testament, Matthew and Luke, that both indicate that Jesus was born of a virgin. The word that is used there, Parthenos, can have a range of meanings. It could mean, a young girl or something, but by the time of the New Testament, it typically means a woman who's never had sex. And both Matthew and Luke are pretty emphatic on this. That's the point, is that she has never had sex at all, and yet God has made her pregnant.
Okay, gotcha. So it's pretty, as far as I'm aware, it wasn't really, apart from a couple of sort of smaller sects, it wasn't really something, the virgin birth wasn't something that was really challenged up until the Enlightenment. Is that fair to say?
Well, it's fair to say within the Christian tradition that, there were some groups that were later declared heretical that denied it. Some Jewish Christian groups, for example, said no, Jesus was born of the union of Joseph and Mary, but he was more righteous than anyone else, and so God chose him. But these kinds of views were pretty much stamped out by the end of the 2nd century, and so you're right. It's not until the Enlightenment that it actually came under any kind of challenge.
Which is why I guess it's such common, prevalent belief. This is more of a sort of personal question, I suppose. Do you think, or maybe in your experience of meeting and talking to other Christians, do you think it's an issue of salvation? Is it an issue of faith to consider Jesus born of a virgin? Because it is pretty heavily stated in the Bible.
Yeah, well, when you said you were going to ask a personal question, I thought you were going to go somewhere else on that virgin thing.
Great tangent. That's for another day.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So traditionally in Christian circles, it's been affirmed as one of in modern times as one of those things you have to believe, and that is interesting because throughout history, as you indicated, it wasn't. Since it was never challenged, it was never like an issue you had to believe. It's just what you believed. It's not really until people started saying, yeah, I don't think so, that some Christian groups started insisting this is fundamental, you have to believe it. It is, of course, in the Christian creeds, as well as a statement of faith. But the issue of whether your salvation depends upon it is really a quite modern phenomenon. I don't know when it first picked up, but I'd imagine it's in the 19th century sometime. And in a way, it's a little bit strange that you have to literally believe in a virgin, according to these groups. Not every Christian agrees with that. A lot of Christians think, no, you don't have to accept that as being literal, but some do. And it's interesting they do, because of the 27 books of the New Testament, only 25 mention it. Only 2 mention it. 25 don't mention it at all. And so it's not clear at all that Paul knew anything about the virgin birth, or that John, Mark, 2 of the Gospels don't mention it. So if it's so important, so it doesn't seem like it should be like a basis for salvation. But some people say, look, without it, you can't have true Christianity.
So let's talk about some other miraculous births in Antiquity then. There's a lot of, classic sort of Greco-Roman mythology. There's a lot of children of gods and men. Were there any other sort of famous examples of people conceived by virgins like that in antiquity?
Right. So I don't want to, I don't want to steal my own thunder by taking away my thesis of my seminar. What I will say is that you do have widespread, fairly widespread. We know of a number of cases of people who allegedly were born because a god got a woman pregnant. You get a lot of great, really, really interesting Greek and Roman myths about that, including, for example, Heracles, or Roman Hercules, whose father was Zeus. And you have pure myths about people who probably didn't exist, but you also have figures who absolutely did exist, like the philosopher Pythagoras or the world conqueror Alexander the Great. You have stories about them being, these people are so superior to the rest of us. They're either so wise, or they're so beautiful, or they're so powerful, that they can't be just a mere mortal. And so you have these traditions that actually, one of the parents was a god. And so you definitely get that. And so the question in my seminar is going to be, do we have any of these instances that we know about, is in any of these instances, is the woman a virgin, someone who's never had sex? And if not, then why is Christianity doing? Are they coming up with this, or are there like traditions we don't know about? If not, and why would they do that? And so it's important. It's important to know, because I know a lot of your audience is inclined to thinking that everything, not everybody, but I mean some people in your audience are inclined to think that all the stories about Jesus are just taken from the pagan world, and it's an important question to pursue. It's not a question that has a foregone conclusion. And it's always the question of what's similar between these two stories and what's different. And if things are different, why are they different? What's that trying to achieve?
That leads exactly into what I wanted to ask you about as well, which was, I was going to say, lots of people are of the sort of a popular opinion that the story of Jesus is more or less pinched from different stories throughout history. Is there anything you can give us, any hints? Because I don't want to just take your course out from under you before you do it. Is there anything that is particularly unique about the story of Jesus that
Well, here's the thing. You go on the internet and you'll find all of these claims, not just about the Christmas story, but about Jesus' life generally, but just with the Christmas story. Oh, so-and-so was born on December 25th, and these wise men came and visited him, and he was born of a virgin, and there was a star. You read all this stuff, and then you look at the ancient sources, and you say, well, where is that exactly? People tell me this all the time, and they'll name somebody, Mithras or somebody. Oh yeah, Mithras, yeah, and he had 12 disciples, and he was like, you kind of go on, and with Mithras, you say, okay, what ancient sources talk about Mithras? The actual Mithraic religion that we know about has no literary sources. There are no written documents about it. It's all of our evidence comes from statuary, from archaeological finds of Mithraic shrines. And so where are you getting December 25th from here? And so anyway, so I think, as a scholar, I'm absolutely concerned to see what the similarities are between Jesus and other divine men in the ancient world. And I'm not doing it as a Christian apologist, because I'm not an apologist and I'm not a Christian. But as a historian, I do want to know, is this just like everyone else, or is it different? My view overall, by the way, is that everyone is different. It's not like they're all the same story. They're all different stories. And so you have to figure out, what's like, if you're talking about, whatever, Alexander the Great, or if you're talking about Heracles, what's similar, what's different between that and and so they're all different. And the question in this particular case is this claim about the virgin birth that is a common motif, is that true or not?
I'm very excited to find out, but I won't push you anymore on that, because we're all going to find out together when we watch the seminar. Okay. So it's fine.
You can push all you want.
I'll push against a wall. I know you. Yeah, you're a solid wall. So I was just going to ask, is there, what are the sort of, I know we can't say well, likely we can't say super accurately, but what's your sort of opinion on where there are sort of similarities, on whether that's just sort of coincidental by way of there just being so many stories throughout history, or, what's the likelihood that some of it is sort of pinched and taken and inspired by other things?
Yeah. I give an interesting exercise to my undergraduate students where I have them read a bunch of stories about divine men in the ancient world and about their births and their miracles and their ascending to heaven at the end. And then I have them read the gospel, what Luke says about Jesus, for all these same kinds of stories. Then I say, okay, what do you make of that? They've, of course, never read any of these things before. They don't know anything about other miraculous births or people casting out demons and raising the dead and ascending to heaven when they die. They're reading these things and saying, oh my God, I had no idea there were these other stories back there. But then they realized them, but then I asked them, okay, so how do you explain it? And of course, invariably, I'll have students say, well, these pagan sources, they're just stealing it from the New Testament. And so they know, and I'll point out that, some of these pagan stories were written centuries earlier. So how could they borrow from something that hadn't been written yet? Oh, God, really? Yeah, right. Next time, read the notes. Yeah, they were. And so, but then the question is, is it direct pinching, or is it that there are lots of stories floating about? My view about this is, so students have other things too. I mean, the Christians in the class who want to say, well, it's like this. These people had some insights into the divine realm, and so these people weren't perfect like Jesus, but they're like anticipating what Jesus is going to be like, things like that, and that's fine. My view is that if you want to tell the story about somebody who seems to be far superior to the rest of us humans, it makes sense to have a superior birth. They came from someplace that is not like where we came from, and if they're far more muscular than us, or far more gorgeous than us, or far more brilliant than us, well, it's probably they got a spark of the divine in them, and maybe they're part divine, and so that creeps into birth stories then. And so not everybody, of course, who is not every fantastic philosopher or he-man is said to have been born of a god, but some are, and I think that is a way of emphasizing why they are special. And it's interesting to think about whether there's a competition that way. In other words, oh yeah, your father, the one you follow he was fathered by Apollo, but mine was fathered by Zeus. That kind of
my
thing.
Dad can beat up your dad.
My dad, oh boy, can my dad be? And so, and if that's the game in town, are Christians playing that game? Are they? Do they know? I assume Christians know about these other stories because the Christian authors we have are not from Israel. They're not. Some of them are Jewish, but probably not very many authors of the New Testament are Jewish. And if that's the case, they've been raised in Gentile environments where these stories are just told. You tell stories about where Heracles came from, or if you're in the Roman Empire, you tell stories where Romulus came from. And so you get these stories, and so they will have heard these stories, and surely that affected the way they tell theirs.
Thank you so much. What a perfect way to end. Thank you again for your time. Can't wait for the course.
Thanks.
And it's wonderful talking to you as always.
Well, me too. Thanks so much.
There you are. I hope you enjoyed that interview, everyone. Some very interesting little tidbits. I'm really excited to hear the full lecture. This is a one lecture special with a 30-minute Q&A. There is an early bird and launch special, so you can get access to this course for only $9.95 to the 16th. The live recording will be on the 14th of December. It is from 8 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time. If you want to get in on the live recording, ask some questions in the Q&A about the virgin birth. It's going to be a hot one to ask questions in. Make sure you do that, get that early bird special. It's a really great deal for a high quality lecture by such a wonderful person, and Bart is so passionate and so interesting when he talks about these things. I personally cannot wait. I think it's very exciting and worthwhile to move past the obvious, the Well, we all obviously believe this, and look at the actual scholarship and see what's true, what we've maybe taken for granted in terms of virgin births in antiquity, stories that are similar to Jesus. And Bart's course is a great way to do that. If you are interested in the course, consider signing up via the link down below. That helps me as a creator. Remember, you can get that early bird special, less than $10. Before we go, I would like to give a big shout out and a thank you to my giant chickens and colossal quackers. I can barely speak because I'm so excited. I love Christmas. Over on Patreon. Have yourselves a very lovely week, and I will see you really soon.